Hey, what's up, 8 Push Kids? We're back here for our next lecture in AP US History. Today we're going to be covering topic 3.9, the Constitution. It's a fairly short lecture today that goes after Learning Objective 3J. Explain the continuities and changes in the structure and function of the government with the ratification of the Constitution. Our key idea, and we just have one for today, says delegates from the states participated in the Constitutional Convention that created a limited but dynamic central government embodying federalism and providing for the separation of powers between its three branches. Our major goal for today is to be able to list many of the different major ideas that are held within our new Constitution. So let's get started here. So first of all, the Constitution was a radical shift from the Articles of Confederation, the AOC, because it gave more power to the national government than to the state governments. And there's several parts of our Constitution that we're going to be focusing on. The first one that we want to talk about is called the Supremacy Clause. Now, this establishes the Constitution, not the states, as the supreme law of the land. So what this means is that whenever there is two laws, a state law and a federal law, that are ever in conflict with one another, then what's going to happen is that the federal government will be supreme. The federal law will always win out over the state laws. Now, the national government under the Constitution would have new features and powers that the Articles of Confederation did not have. For instance, rather than a single unicameral Congress, the new government would be divided among three equal branches of government. However, like the Articles of Confederation, the Congress is still going to have a legislative branch or a Congress that's going to make laws. However, unlike the Articles of Confederation, Congress is going to have the power to tax and to coin money. Now, to coin money means that they can print or make money. So we are going to have a national currency. A major difference from the Articles of Confederation, the new government is going to have a president or an executive branch that's going to lead the nation and enforce laws. One of the reasons why the Articles of Confederation didn't have a presidency or executive branch is it seemed too much like a king kind of under King George III. Now, unlike the Articles of Confederation, the new government is also going to have a court system or a judicial branch. They're going to interpret the laws and prosecute federal crimes. And there's going to be several principles that are within the new Constitution. They're listed here on the left-hand side. Popular sovereignty, separation of powers, judicial review, federalism, checks and balances, and limited government. So let's start with limited government at the bottom of the list. Now, simply limited government means that even though the national government was stronger, citizens' liberties were still protected. Now, the biggest way that they were protected is through the Bill of Rights, which is what the Anti-Federalists insisted on having to ratify the Constitution. A second major feature of our new Constitution was this concept of federalism. This is where the national government and state governments share power with one another. So they get to do some things together. So for instance, today one of the ways that we see federalism is through our interstate highway system. The 1950s, the federal government put up 90% of the money to build the interstate highways. However, today they're governed by state laws, by how fast you can drive on them, and it's the states that help to maintain them. This is a great example of federalism in action. A third example is what we call separation of powers. Now, separation of powers is a major idea. It's just the separation of the three branches of government with defined powers. Now, along with this concept of separation of powers is the concept of checks and balances. This is where each government can limit the power of each other one. Now, the biggest is the ability of the president to be able to veto different acts of Congress and Congress's ability to impeach the president. You'll get a lot more into these different ideas of checks and balances next year when you take your government class. But for right now, understanding these basic ones, the ability to impeach and the ability to veto, are important for right now. So in summary, what we've covered today is some of the major ideas that have gone into the creation of the new Constitution. Ideas such as federalism, limited government, separation of powers, and checks and balances. And we've also covered some of the major differences and similarities between the new Constitution and the Articles of Confederation. Until next time, go Pack.